Good evening, everybody. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. I hope you can hear me. Give me a thumbs up. Kara, you're in the back. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Kara. Good evening and welcome. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome you here this evening. I'm so grateful for your curiosity and your commitment that has brought you here. And I'm looking forward to sharing this time with you and especially with our wonderful youth and young adults, and look forward to introducing them to you in just a minute. I know that we're all coming from maybe traffic, from work, from having little ones crying as you walk out of the room. I'm not speaking from experience. Hopefully, I don't know, has she calmed down, anybody? As we transition from getting here to being here, I'd love to center ourselves and to give some space for peace and to open us in a word of prayer. Would you join me as we pray together? Holy God, you are the one who created us, the one who formed us, the one who claimed us so long ago. Before we earned it with accolades, ambitions, and achievement, you said, "You are mine." So center us in that belief. Tell us again that we belong to you rather than we deserve you. Tell us again that you are at work in the world. Tell us again of the promise of unbounded love and beautiful hope. As we gather tonight, settle our minds. Melt away the plans we have for the next thing. Quiet the plotting our minds naturally drift to, and help us to be present, to sense your spirit, to trust your love, to be where you are. Bless our time. May we find here something of your work in the world. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen. Y'all come on in. We have gotten into the habit. I'm going to take just a second. I think the choir is practicing downstairs, so I'm going to close the doors. They sound beautiful, but let's give them a little bit more time to rehearse, and we'll hear them on Sunday. I'm going to close these doors. It was just a sign, don't worry. That's a sign, yeah. Over the last 3 years, we've gotten into a really cool habit of taking the month of January to get to know our young people and our young adults better and how we can support them and better understand the culture in which they're swimming and how it's shifted from what we knew. Last year, we studied Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, and the year before that, we studied Lisa Miller's book, The Spiritual Child, all of which have really informed the ministry that we offer here. As a result of our study of the anxious generation, we made all of our youth retreats phone-free, and all of our small groups are phone-free as well, and we're continuing to look at how we can contribute meaningfully. Tonight, we are going to spend some time learning from our youth, and we're going to base our conversation off of Jennifer Breheny Wallace's book, Never Enough, When Achievement Culture Becomes Toxic and What We Can Do About It. So I want to take a minute first and say, if you didn't read the book, that's okay, it wasn't expected. You can still be here, which is the thrust of the book. You can still be here. But to help ground you, I want to give a definition of achievement culture. So achievement culture is the system in which a person's worth is measured primarily by accomplishments, credentials, and external markers of success, rather than by their inherent values or relationships. Jennifer Wallace writes in her book, "Achievement culture is the belief system in which success and productivity become the primary measures of human worth, where doing well is confused with being worthy, and where falling behind feels dangerous rather than human." I'll share my own experience of this. When we were talking beforehand with the youth, we were talking about reading just a few bits of this book and feeling very seen. I felt incredibly seen when I was a high school senior. I graduated from a prep school on the Upper East Side of New York City, and I graduated in 2006, so that was a while ago, 20 years ago, which is terrifying to admit. And plastered across the front walls of the school when you walked in were all the schools that people had been admitted to. So here's Harvard, UPenn, Yale, and telling you over and over again, Where are you going? What are you doing? Have you done enough? So this book has really resonated with me, and I'd like to pair that with our ability to hope that we can put all of this in stark contrast to a life of fruitfulness. Henry Nouwen is a beautiful theologian who describes fruitfulness like this. He says, you have to be really aware of the difference between fruitfulness and success, because the world is always talking to you about your success. Society keeps asking you, show me your trophies. Show me how many books have you written? Show me. How many games have you won? Show me. How much money do you make? Show me. And there is nothing wrong with any of that. It's just that it's not the right question. The question is, are you going to bear fruit? So tonight, we'll learn from some youth and young adults who have generously offered to share their lives, their wisdom, and time with us. So I'd love to get started by asking them to introduce themselves. So Lucy, you chose to sit right next to me, so you get to introduce yourself first.
Wait, okay, this is on.
Oh, sorry.
Perfect.
Yeah, Lucy, can you introduce yourself?
Yes.
Tell us about your relationship to Covenant and what you do during your days. How do you spend your days?
So I'm Lucy Frost. I'm a senior at Myers Park High School, and I came to Covenant when I was in about second grade. I pretty much grew up in the church here. I love the youth group. I love going to the services. And on my day-to-day basis, normally during the school year, wake up, 6 a.m. alarm, go to class, and I do a multitude of activities outside of school. I do speech and debate. I do public forum debate specifically, and every Tuesday and Thursday we have practices. I also play violin. I'm an avid violinist. I've been playing since I was about 6 years old, so that's something that I like to continue in my day-to-day as well. And something that I also like to do on the weekly is going rock climbing. It's something I've picked up recently, actually, to kind of deal with this idea of achievement culture. Doing something that doesn't go on my resume, climbing for fun, has been, a great addition to my week recently. And yeah, that's pretty much what I would do in a week.
Is that it?
Well, I have a couple more things. I'm a president of some clubs, and we do some other things, but that isn't mainly week to week. It's normally every other month, and then obviously college applications, and
It's amazing, all that y'all do, and I'm in awe of what you do. Thanks for introducing yourself,
Yes, of
Lucy.
course.
Thanks for being here.
I'm Hope. I'm a senior at South Mech. Coming up on 16 years being a member at Covenant with my family, so I've very much grown up here, and I am here all the time. I love it here. My typical day, wake up, go to school, practice after school. I'm a basketball player, so I practice 5 to 6 times a week. That includes film, you're doing scrimmages, all the things, weightlifting, and then if you have a game, it is even longer. I also am involved in the arts, so I do musical theater, so I just did a show back in December, so it kind of is on and off, if that's in my week or not in my week. I'm involved in a lot of different clubs at my school, and I also volunteer, so I'm a teen volunteer at Living Children's Hospital, so I spend time there as well, not on a week-to-week basis, but I try to go as much as I can, and yeah.
Thanks, Hope. I'm so glad you're here.
And I'm Daniel Pressa, and I joined Covenant as a member back in July of 2025. So I'm a relatively recent member. And my day-to-day, definitely different than both of theirs. I wake up around 8 a.m., get ready. I then go in my car and drive down I-77 into uptown Charlotte, where I work at K&L Gates, which is a global law firm. I serve as a legal project assistant with their structured finance team. I'm there from 9 to 5 with a 30-minute lunch break. I then drive back up to North Charlotte where I live, and I usually take an hour nap before I do either on Mondays, every Monday, I go to Moe's Southwest Grill because they have a Moe's Monday deal. And so I do that weekly with my 2 other friends from college, from Davidson College, who also live in Charlotte. And it's just a good way to have some fellowship with them regularly every week. And if not doing that, I like to cook at home too, so I do that. And then on weekends, I like to play pickleball. And in fact, my room and I are in a pickleball league right now. And then just hang out with friends who are in Charlotte. On Sundays, I go to church here at Covenant. I'm trying to be as involved at Covenant as I can. I had my own life group last fall. I've done some service events at Roof Above. Been really active with Covenant YA. Really great community. And then my parents, ever since I went off to college, made me promise to them that I would call them every Sunday. So I still keep that up. Try to call them over FaceTime. Although I saw them for 3 weeks in December. I had a family vacation in Europe and also in Northern California, where I'm originally from. So probably won't be calling them this Sunday because I had a lot of family time then. But yeah, no, that is my week to week.
Daniel, I think every mother in here wants to talk to you afterwards about how your parents made that happen and would like to know how to secure that deal.
So I'm coming back to the high school life. So I'm Mac Bacon. I'm a junior at Myers Park. I'm part of the wrestling team. That's probably my biggest time-consuming thing. I'm also in the IB program, so that also takes up a lot of my time. So that's pretty much my week. So I have wrestling meets a couple Wednesdays, Tuesdays, so I'm a backup varsity 120. Yeah, just so you know. And then on the weekends, I also work at Carolina Golf Club, and so I try to work out there as much as I can, but not too much too recently because of wrestling. But I also try to play golf too, and then come to church on Sunday as well. So yeah, and I don't need to call my mother because I actually live with my mother. So I have that whole family vacation, so try to get away from there
all the time.
But
Yeah.
I'm so glad that each of you is here. I adore each of you and am very grateful to get to share this time with you. So we're going to talk a little bit about what success looks like. Could you share what you would define as success and where you think that definition comes from? And maybe let's think about the definition of success that kind of works in your brain, not what you would always hope to share. What definition of success works in your brain? Go ahead, Lucy.
Okay, so for me, and I think for many of the teenagers across even the world, look at social media, they're scrolling online and they see that success means balance. To me, I think that that's kind of what success is, being able to realistically balance relationships, your health, your education, any sort of extracurriculars you have, and being able to excel at all of them, I think is mainly the definition of being a successful person that's perpetrated online today.
So I want to make sure I'm hearing something here too that's interesting of like, do as many things as you can, but never make it show and do them really well. Never look stressed. And,
Yes.
But do everything.
Yes.
Okay. I feel that as a young mom too.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm sad to know that we haven't fixed that from generation to generation. Hope you have a definition of success. What would that be?
Yeah, definitely what Lucy said, and also just do it all, but have people be shocked by how little sleep you're running on because you were up till 3 a.m. doing homework. To me, I know this isn't true, but for me, it doesn't feel like I've been successful unless I'm as close to perfection as possible. So if the grade that I get isn't an A, no, that's never happened. It's because it just stresses me out so much. And then when you get into sports, success becomes a whole different thing because it becomes about how many points you can score instead of how good of a teammate are you and what are you learning from or what colleges are recruiting you.
It's all what comes out of this, not what happens within it. What's going to come from you playing 4 years of basketball? Will you go to the right school? Not how were you shaped by those 4 years of basketball? That's really hard. Yeah.
For me, I'm always asking myself the question of am I fulfilled in what I'm doing? And that was something I think just from growing up in the church and hearing so many different pastors and growing up around so many different mentors, that word has always been brought up whenever I was in moments of challenge, but also when I was looking forward to moving on in some checkpoint in my life. At Davidson, I definitely accumulated a lot of extracurriculars. You know, at one point I had 9 extracurriculars on top of 4 classes, very rigorous classes. And I think in that point of my life, for me, it was like the quantity of what I was doing and trying to get involved in as many things as I can. But after speaking with the chaplain there at the time, actually Rob Spock, I don't know if any of you know who he is, but there was a moment where I felt that I was doing all this stuff, but also wasn't able to balance my relationships. I felt that, it was great I was doing all these extracurriculars, but I felt that my friendships were really shallow and were taking a hit. And a word that he kept bringing up was this sense of fulfillment, like where he even asked me honestly, like, Daniel, do you feel fulfilled that you're doing all these 9 things and the 4 classes? And like after thinking about that really important conversation, I realized that I really wasn't. Now that it's hard to say, that's easy to say now because I feel like I have a little bit more of my life together. But back then as a sophomore in college, it's definitely hard to keep that in track when you don't really know where life is going to take you yet, and you're not necessarily super confident in what you're doing. So this question about fulfillment is how I use as a barometer of success in my life. Yeah.
So my definition of success is much different. So like, for me, so a big part of this is like wrestling. Like I'm not too dedicated to it, like at all. But like I'm just doing it for college. But it's like for me, I want to get into a good school, and I want to get a good job. I want to make a lot of money, and I want to do good. All those things are just like they're weighing down on you, and they're like it's just hard to balance it all. Like how do I do good, and like it's just yeah. And like I know for me, I'm a junior. I'm not a senior. I'm not worried about colleges just quite yet. But like I don't want to be too stressed out with school to focus on school in the future. I also want to like live my life as I am right now, and like I want to hang out with my friends. I want to do all that stuff, but I don't want to like fail school. And I want to feel like smart, and I feel like I've achieved something in school, and then go on to a college that I enjoy and I would love to be at. And then so I'm also a Boy Scout. I forgot to mention that on the last part. And so I'm currently working towards my Eagle. I hope to do my Eagle project here, and so that's a big part. And so I have an older brother, and I've seen all like my brother, my friend, his friends, and all my friends Eagle out already. And I'm kind of the last one in like my friend group, and it's kind of like I want to be with them, but at the same time, it's like how do I get there without putting way too much stress on me? Like I do not like stress at all. I try to avoid it at all costs. And so, like, I've put this off for so long, and now I have 8 months left to get my Eagle since you Eagle out at 18. And so I have to get it before then. And so I've been working hard on it, and hopefully I'll be able to get it done soon. But so to sum it all up, like getting Eagle for me, that's a big part of success. Getting into a good college and doing something fulfilling in my life.
I find it so interesting when you guys are talking to hear this balance that I'm hearing of like the things that you've had success defined for you of Lucy, you beautifully named like balance, like do everything but don't let it show, and get the external accolades. But then I'm also hearing you balancing with like what you want success to look like, but not what success has been defined for you as. In the book, Jennifer Breheny Wallace says, parents have bet big on the belief that childhood success, the grades, the trophies, the resumes, is the surest, safest path to a secure, happy adult life. And she goes on to prove that those are not the things that lead to a secure, happy adult life. Daniel, you beautifully have named that, what fulfillment looks like instead of success. So thank you guys for sharing that. I want to take a little bit of, I want to talk to my seniors for a second. I shared in 2006 at a prep school on the Upper East Side, the wall was painted with all the college admittances. And there's a story in Never Enough where there's a mom touring daycare, and above the cribs are all the pins of Ivy League colleges. And she asks, what are those for? And she says, we have a very high expectation of our students. So let's talk, when I was in college, when I was going into school, we had expectations of how many schools we would apply to and what our college acceptances would look like. What have college applications looked like for you guys? How many schools have you applied to? How much time has it taken up? What pressure is on you right now?
So I actually just finished my last application on January 5th. It was 19 out of 19. Yeah. So if you're wondering how expensive that is, I'm in a class that pays for all of them. So I would not know we didn't have to pay for them, thankfully. That's why I applied to as many as I did. It was crazy trying to do all that. It was like, it felt, there were nights where I was like, okay, you're asking me the same question over and over, but I can't use what I've already written. Like, I can't use what I've already done. Or there would be ones where I'm like, I listed all of this on the Common App. You can't read it. So it's like I have to re-input everything. And then there's also a lot of pressure when people are like, people's favorite question to ask you, Thanksgiving, Christmas, where are you thinking about going to school? What colleges are you applying to? What are you going to major in? Like, where have you gotten into? And then so it's a lot of pressure once you share where you have applied to then, if you hear back and it's not good news, it's like, okay, so now all these people know I applied there, and it's like, so there's like hints of competition too, because you go to classes and it's like, okay, everyone in this class applied to Chapel Hill. We found out yesterday who got into Chapel Hill, so it's like kind of like a weird, it's almost like competition, like who can get into what schools, and so there's a lot of pressure there, while there's already enough pressure from the colleges themselves, is everything you have to do, how basically perfect you have to be to even get in at all.
So that internal competition rather than support of your friend when you get into Chapel Hill, or go ahead,
yes.
Lucy.
I even have an anecdote for this. When Chapel Hill came out, I was at Friendsgiving at my friend's house. Everyone was checking their phones to see if they got in. It was a little tense because not everyone got in, and it was a lot.
And some people did, and some people didn't.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot.
Yeah, that was an interesting little tidbit. You know, colleges like to sometimes not say when they're releasing their decisions, so some of them just, email you and say, hey, your decision's here. Some of them give you times, which is helpful, but in this case, that was a very, indicative situation of when you are literally faced with all of your peers and you're looking to see if you got accepted into a college. And, some people did, some people didn't. And kind of going back to this original question here, I didn't apply to as many colleges as Hope. I applied to 13, so not as many, but,
But a lot.
And plenty of them were reach schools, schools. I applied to, I think, 3 Ivy Leagues, and then a lot of other schools like Duke, Vanderbilt, Emory, schools that have very low acceptance rates, as well as, my safety schools. But when people go to ask me, where would you like to go to college, answering that question is almost like trying to seal your fate at that moment. If you don't get in, then you have to go and tell all of those people again, kind of like what Hope was saying is, oh, admissions came out the other day. Did you guys get in? And even on Instagram, there's a futures page for all of the high schools. So you can quite literally stalk everyone in your district to see where they're going to college. You can look at Myers Park, you can look at South Mech, you can look at East Mech, you can look at North Mech, you can see where people are committing, you can see pretty much everything that everyone's doing. And that also adds a sense of external pressure here, where you see that other people are getting their definition of success, but you're still waiting for your, happy ending, or hoping for a happy ending. And people have almost kind of framed it as college being the end-all be-all, almost like it is quite literally where your success starts to grow. But if you don't get there in the first place, then it turns out different wherever you go. So for me, this whole process has been incredibly stressful. I'm thankfully also done with the process like Hope, so we're just awaiting decisions, but it's going to be a couple months. So that is also going to be a pretty stressful time, but I hope to distract myself with things that I like to do and things I enjoy, like rock climbing I mentioned earlier, also playing violin more. I'm learning the Mendelssohn Concerto, which is always fun. So yeah, just doing other things besides school, besides, competition, and just, being grateful for what I have in this moment.
I'm so glad you're getting that time to claim what's good right now, especially after a season of feeling like you're sealing your fate. And like I mentioned, I graduated from high school 20 years ago, so I don't have all the wisdom that exists in the world or even close to it, but I can promise you that where you go to school will not be all that you are or all the beginning of your success. Each of you is already so wonderful, just exactly as you are. So I have to say that, and we can keep talking. So let me ask you this for everybody, not just the seniors. When did you realize that achievement mattered a lot in the world that you live in? What markers of that existed from school, from family, from social media, maybe from church or other peers? When did you first notice that achievement meant a lot? Thanks, Mac.
Yeah, so I almost feel like it was like not long ago, like a year or two ago. So, I mean, I feel like I've kind of become conscious of the world that we live in and around me, and like how I am competing against my friends to get into these schools and to become an Eagle Scout. I do have to like put my friends aside and go and work on that. It's just like it's just all that, and like it's this.
Yeah, the competition among
Yeah,
peers.
it's the competition, and so like, sorry,
Yeah,
sorry.
no,
And so like I feel like when, like for me, I think it was when I joined the wrestling team. Like I felt like oh, I'm not, like I kind of feel like, oh, I'm not friends with all these people. Like not everyone I meet will be my best friend, and like I need to actually like work towards a goal. And so a good example of this is, so last year I was horrible at wrestling, didn't win a match. And this year in my first match I pinned the guy. And so that was just like that was my first sense, like there's a picture of it, and my mom says that was the biggest I've ever smiled, and like, because I felt like I've been working towards this for a year and a half, and I finally got it. I finally won my first match. I finally got the pin, and so I feel that like that was my first achievement, and that opened me up to this world that, oh, there is achievement all around us, getting into a better school, getting a good job, and all that stuff.
So that crept up for you recently, and you're describing too that it didn't just come from your parents. It's your parents don't have to be the ones who put it on you for this to be the water that we're swimming in.
Yeah, I think that sense of achievement has always come from my family, my upbringing. One set of grandparents came to this country from Korea during the Korean War, and they are both very well educated, and they learned to speak English and raised my mom back in New Jersey. My dad is a very accomplished pastor theologian. He has a number of degrees, including a PhD. I think I've lost track. He's at this point written over 9 books. He's also an ecumenical leader, so he works with other churches around the world. And my mom also got her master's at Columbia University. So there has been a lot of, and albeit some, pressure that I put on myself of coming from this very excellent family who have achieved so many great things. And so, I mean, I remember the college application process too. I applied to like 12 or 13 colleges. I got rejected from Brown, but then got my ED2 acceptance at Davidson College. And that was a great sense of achievement, because for me, talking with my parents and other adults, knowing that college is one of those first key steps in your life, where you meet great friends, you kind of get a sense of who you are, And I will say that my brother's experience doing that was a little bit interesting because, he applied to so many great schools as well. He applied to all the UCs, and he also applied to USC. He eventually got into LMU, but before he heard that, but by the way, LMU is Loyola Marymount University, which is a college in Los Angeles. But during that time where he was getting all these rejections or wait lists, there was at one point this fear that he had of, am I going to go, Mom, am I have to go to community college? And community college is still a great route. And unfortunately, people in high school look down upon it as something where, if you go there, then I guess you haven't achieved, you're a failure in life. And my mom was trying to reassure him that even if that were the case, that is perfectly fine. You can still achieve the great things you want to do over there. And eventually he got into LMU, and he's doing great right now. He's achieving great things. In fact, he just found out that he got accepted to JP Morgan. So he's going to be an intern there for the summer, and then we'll get a full-time offer after he graduates. But going back to the original question, I think it's that sense of achievement has always been there. That sense of expectation has been there from my family, and I'll probably get into more of that later in the discussion. But
yeah, it's just family. It kind of comes in and creeps in, I think, is what I hear.
I remember achievement being such a big deal from a very young age. I have 2 older siblings. My sister and I are very similar. We're both very academic oriented. My brother is extremely smart as well. He just wasn't as crazy as my sister and I were, and are. So coming from that, it was never really a spoken expectation in our family. My parents have always been, just do your best for your grades, things like that. As long as you're doing your best, we don't care what the grade is. My sister and I have always been straight A students, so it kind of just felt like that was just, oh yeah, that's what you're supposed to do all the way through. I remember as young as being in 4th grade, and we took a test, and I remember my teacher telling a kid, oh, well, you did better than Hope, so it was that was the competition point was already it's can you do better than, and so it just creates this almost, it's never enough. You're never doing enough, you're never achieving enough. And I remember reading something one time that said, I don't celebrate my own accomplishments because I feel as though it was expected of me to achieve them.
Wow.
No matter what is I've had people tell me when I tell them where I've gotten into school so far, they're like, and why are you just saying it like that? It's that's a huge, huge deal. And it's you kind of forget that because it almost feels like that's what you're supposed to do. And from a sports standpoint, as someone that has gone through and seen the recruiting process, it's also really big there because I remember the first time I really got into super competitive basketball, I was in middle school. So we're all 6th, 7th grade probably. And our coach tells us it's an AAU team, and he tells us, he said, if you don't want to play in college, you shouldn't be here. Why are you here if you don't want to go play in college? So that was the culture too, from a very young age, athletically. So it was always if you're not going to be the best, if you're not going to work to be the best, then why are you doing it? Kind of was the expectation that was placed. So then it creates that kind of if I'm not the best at what I do, then what's the point in doing it? Is kind of the culture that's been created.
So I completely agree with everything Hope just said. We've had pretty similar experiences from what I can tell. One specific anecdote for me was I was in 5th grade. I had just transferred to a new school. It was an academic center school, Irwin Academic Center. Hope went there too. And I was walking into the classroom, and we had just taken our MAP tests, which is a standardized testing test that will kind of tell you, really, they framed it as how smart you were. They framed it as, how, I don't know, I guess how well you were doing in the grade you were in. And I walked in, I was a little early to class, and I heard 2 teachers just talking about this one guy, his name was Shri, and they were talking about, wow, he got a 160, this is the best we've ever had. And I sat there thinking about my score, and I was like, oh, they wouldn't be proud of me, it was lower. And I kind of internalized that as, oh, I need to be the best for authority figures to think that I am worthy of their time or to be proud of me. Now, that has never been an issue with my parents. They are very supportive. They're right here. They're they're supporting me right now, and they have never asked me to do anything of the extraordinary. They've always just said, just do your best. This pressure has really just been from myself, from the experience of other people maybe with high achieving, like a culture of high achievement. I think that I kind of was susceptible to it because it was something that I, didn't really grow up with. So I was thinking, how do I, change? How do I grow to be someone different from, the initial values as which I was raised with, experiencing other experiences, values, and, getting into achievement culture. Sometimes you just fall in too deep and you realize that that's kind of all that you're looking at when you're evaluating yourself.
It's a really open trap that was
Yes.
easy to fall into, even with parents that so many of you are naming that have grounded you and haven't put that pressure on you. It's the water that we swim in. It exists.
Yes.
I want to talk, I've heard over and over again about comparison. And Mac, you mentioned this, like you didn't really have much care about wrestling, and then you got there and you're like, you started comparing yourself to the other kids on the wrestling team. And Hope and y'all have talked about comparing yourself to everybody else to see who ends up getting the spot at Chapel Hill or the spot at Duke. How has comparison affected your relationships with people? Is it allowing you to have deeper friendships, or what do your competitors look like? What do your competitor friends look like?
I can start if no one else wants to talk. So I've kind of surrounded myself in a community of people who are very like-minded like me. They're, pretty much achievement-oriented. They want to go to a good college. They want to do well in school. A lot of them are with me in the IB program and in HL Math and are doing, crazy things outside of school. And the people that I've surrounded myself with are obviously the people who I've come to compare myself to. And definitely one of my best friends she actually decided to apply to my dream school, which is one of the Ivy Leagues, a couple weeks ago. And it's definitely put a little bit of tension in our relationship because, not that I would be defending the school saying, it's mine, but she, knowing that you have a competitor that's so close to you that that if one of you gets in and the other doesn't get in, it'll just break your relationship. That's just a lot of stress on, my mentality of how I'm approaching talking to other people and having, other friends that are also applying to these competitive schools. I find it a little easier to, be in a room of classmates that are applying to these top schools, but you're not as close with. So it's okay if, they get in, you don't. But if you're, such, close friends with someone and, that just will bridge a divide between the two of you. And I haven't experienced it yet, so I'm not quite sure what's going to happen, but it's definitely something that's been, going on in my mind. Even in orchestra, trying out for auditions, auditioning for different orchestras, even like soloist competitions, anything related to do with music. For me, I love all the people I play music with, but when it turns into a competition, sometimes it just takes the joy out of it. So, since I've kind of stopped doing competitions, I did Western Regionals Orchestra my freshman year. After that, I was, pretty much done with any sort of competition aspect of music. I just decided to focus on, performing for others, performing for myself, and finding the joy that music gave me personally. And I think that's kind of a way that I've been able to turn something that, used to be framed as a competitive aspect. When you first go in, you're like, oh, you can do Western Regionals, you can do the solo competitions, so you can get awards for college. But really, what's more important, that I've kind of learned over the past couple of years is just to do the things that you love.
I remember one of the classes that I take is a program called AVID. We don't have, the IB program is not at South Mech, so we have a bunch of APs, but we also have a program called AVID. which is a really cool program. It's geared towards basically preparing kids for the future, like outside of school. So whether that be your future is going to look like going to college, or you're entering the military, or you're going into the workforce, it's just geared to kind of prepare you, give you the skills and the tools that you need to reach those goals and to be successful in whatever you choose to do. And in that class, I remember our school counselor is walking in. It's like one of the first weeks of school. And he's coming in and he's talking to us about college applications, because all of us had at least one that we were going to do. And so he walks in there, and the first thing he tells us is, do not compare yourself to anyone else. That was the first thing he told us, and he emphasized it more than anything else in this entire process. And even though that's an extremely hard thing to remember when you're constantly talking about it with your peers, and that's all over social media with the future pages, as Lucy said, it's something that we almost kind of try to remind each other of. So like, we'll be proofreading each other's supplementals for applications, and people will be like, oh, yours is so much better than mine. Like mine is probably like really bad, but like, can you read it? And so you're just trying to remind each other. It's like, no, like you need to have confidence in yourself. Like just because mine was good doesn't mean that yours isn't, and all of that stuff. And then from a purely academic standpoint, outside of college applications, in the once you get to the higher level of AP classes, when you're taking more AP sciences, more AP maths, you tend to have the same people in your class. You're running with the same group, typically. And so it kind of gets to a point where it's like, you hear some people talking about how easy a class is for them, and it might be a class that you're having to study really hard to do well in. But then you might be in another class together where it's the opposite situation, where you're able to kind of just breeze through it. So then it's also comparison there, and for that it's more internalized, at least for me, because I'll hear people talking about, this class is so easy, got like a 98 on that AP bio test or whatever it is, and then I'm thinking, I'm like, wow, like I had to study for a while, and that was and then I got like a 95 or something, which is obviously still a good score, but it's kind of like but they didn't have to study as hard as I did, or like that kind of comparison also comes up.
So I think much of my answer is going to center around LinkedIn. And I'm going to preface my answers by saying that LinkedIn, it can be an awesome tool, an awesome way for people to stay connected, but can also be the worst. There's so many, you can compare yourselves on how many likes your posts get, or you can have comparisons on who gets the job the quickest, or who has the most connections in there. There's even games on LinkedIn. I don't know if any of y'all know about that, but now you can compare who gets the puzzle faster than other people. And LinkedIn was the worst, especially for my graduating class. I'm class of 2025, and as you probably all know, the job market is some of the worst that we've ever seen. LinkedIn is such a big public square for a lot of competition and a lot of self-doubt. Seeing people who were getting jobs already and posting about it definitely did not help when myself and other of my friends didn't quite have jobs yet at the time. And I remember one of my really good friends from Davidson, I think he applied to he had to have applied to over 100 different places. I eventually found out that I got a job here in Charlotte in May, but by this past summer, he still didn't have a job. And I just remember having to console him so many times because of the amount of self-doubt that he had and constantly comparing himself to other people. And I assume that he probably checked in on how many connections he had compared to how many I had. But yeah, I just remember all that self-doubt and comparison going on, and I was constantly trying to tell him, you are good enough, be confident in who you are. There's a reason why we're such good friends, and it's because of what I see in you. And thankfully, he did eventually get a job later in the summer. So this sense of comparison, I think, in this time of my life has really come up through LinkedIn. So
Yeah, that's so true.
yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, back to the coming conscious, a year or two ago, probably start of high school. So I went to Charlotte Lab, and it's it's a charter school. It's a charter school, maybe. Yeah, I can't really remember. So I went there from 3rd to 7th grade, and so in between that, 6th grade was COVID for me, and so I feel like lab was very different compared to public schools on how they taught and how they instilled like values into you. And so like I don't think I ever saw one like report cards. I don't think I ever did. And so some things that they gave me I'm very appreciative of, and some things I'm not so appreciative of. But it's interesting looking back because I never compared myself to anyone at lab. We were all equals there because, and I think that's partly because like, I mean, I think you could see your grades. I didn't, but like, so I would never compare myself with anyone because I didn't know my grades, and I don't think they know like, we never talked about our grades. We just lived our lives, and we lived in the moment, and we had no stress to worry about, no future, like, not no future, but like, like no, we aren't worrying about our future and worrying about anything like that. And then COVID hit, and everything stayed the same, and then I lost a lot of emphasis behind my work, let's say. Sitting behind my computer, on Zooms, playing Minecraft, not paying attention. And then we go back to school, and it's kind of still the same. So for 8th grade, I go to Trinity Episcopal. And so that was kind of like a wake-up call to me, like, oh, I'm getting actual grades. Oh, this Math 1 class I'm in, this will count to college. I mean, it's not going to be my GPA, but if I get this, I'm going to be ahead in high school. And so I really had... So that changed my perspective, and so it was pretty. For COVID, it kind of wiped out my middle school, and so for 6th and 7th grade, and so for like math was a big struggle for me. 7th grade year, I had 4 different math teachers, and so like it was hard because I didn't know the math, and then I come into Trinity 8th grade. And I take I take the test for placement and stuff, and then I get into Math 1, and I'm far behind everyone else because I didn't have a teacher pretty much for 2 years, and so I luckily had this amazing teacher, Mr. Plum, an amazing guy. He's such a nice guy, and he helped me, and like he was also, so they had Konanias, which is like advisory, like a small group. And he was my Koinonia leader, and he made sure that, like, and so Trinity's K through 8, and all these kids, 50 kids in the grade, they have been together for the whole time, and so I'm a newcomer, and he made sure that I felt included with everyone, and that was great. But the point I'm trying to make is that K through 8, like all my life up until 8th grade, I never really felt the need to compare myself with anyone because I felt like we were all equals, we were all friends. And then getting to high school, it's kind of the same thing. And then I realized that when I have a C in English, it's not that good, and kind of want to get that better. I did in that class with a C because I didn't like. I'm going to blame it on I didn't like my teacher, but we all know where it really comes from. And so that kind of started my comparison with people. It was like, I didn't want to tell people that I got a C in freshman English. Like, a C in freshman English. Like, come on. Like, everyone else is getting A's and B's, and I'm like, and I have my C in it. At one point, I was failing it. And I feel like I'd been really smart all throughout middle school and elementary school. And then I get to this point, and I'm failing English. I have a C in English, and it's kind of like realization that that these people are putting in more time, putting more effort, and they're getting better grades. But I don't want to tell people that, oh, I have a C in English, and you guys are smarter than me. I mean, pretty much. Like, oh, you guys have and so I get, and then so I pass all my classes, and I go into sophomore year, and so I get to sophomore year, and I'm like, okay. All right, I'm still kind of feeling the same. Like I felt the same, and then all this rezoning came around, and so I would have been rezoned to South Mech, and not no hate to South Neck, no hate to South Neck, but I had a lot of friends at Myers Park, and I'd moved around so much from Lab to Trinity to Myers Park, and I hadn't been in public school since 3rd grade, and so I had no friends in the public school, and my friends from Trinity were going other places, and from Lab we all split up in pretty much 8th grade, and so I didn't really know anyone, and I didn't have anyone to compare myself to, so I was still kind of alone. But I get to this point sophomore year, I have these friends, and then I start comparing myself with them, like as you naturally do. You compare yourself with the people around you, and I mean it's sophomore year. We're going through it, and then I get to junior year. First day, so in IB you have this class called HODA, History of the Americas, and we have a teacher named Mr. Campagna. He's an interesting guy. I know 2 people in this room know him, at least, and we walk in, and he's like, "You guys are the 0.04% of everyone in the world, or every kid your age," and he breaks it all down. It's like a kid at Myers Park, an IB kid at Myers Park, a junior in IB, and it's like all that. I don't know how he got the number, but he made sure to, or in my opinion at least, he emphasized that you're now fighting, like you're the top, like the IB's a very good program, and you're the top of this, you're in this program, and now you have to compare yourself with the best of the best. And I'm not, I feel like I'm smart, but I'm definitely not like a straight A student, and so as of the past HODA quiz, I got a 20 on it. I was out of 5 questions, so but I got a 20 on it, and that's because I did not study at all. But it's my fault. It's the fault of my own. But so I get to this point, and everyone's like, "Oh, Mac, what did you get on the test?" And I'm like, "Oh, I did fine. What about you guys?" And they're like, "Oh, well, I got a 75." I'm like, "Oh, that's great." Grades are horrible. He gives terrible grades, in my opinion. But to everyone. And so they're like, "Oh, I got 75," and everyone's like, "Oh, that's great. And here I am sitting with my 20. It's not great, but I don't want to tell people that. Don't want to compare myself to them, but in my head, I am comparing myself to them. I'm comparing myself to them and their future. And I know that they're all going to go great places because they're in IB. They're super smart. They're going to go great schools. And then there's me. And then there's me. I'm like, I don't have the best grades. Am I going to get into these schools as well? Does IB give enough credit to that? And that's so. Just the program that I'm in just gives you it's comparing me with all of them and everyone else in my school. But was that the right choice for me to stay at Myers Park to do IB and to get to take these harder courses so that I could compare myself? Oh yeah, I'm an IB, I'm better than you, but am I really better than you? Is that?
Thank you, Mac. It's interesting to imagine the way that comparison has creeped up for you, and that statement of you're the 0.04%, and so you need to start comparing yourself to the best of the best. And I often note how we are always looking up rather than looking around or looking at those who are in need of our support or our help. Our focus always is on what comes next, who's above us, who's making, talking to the adults in the room, who's making more money than me, who's got a bigger home than I do, who's got the next promotion that I do. Y'all are experiencing that on the level of who is getting into the right colleges, and we're comparing ourselves to the best of the best rather than looking around or looking to those who are experiencing different circumstances. I want to take a flip to the positive to end our time, and I want to think about what helps you feel like you matter and who helps you feel like you matter. Jennifer Breheny Wallace talks about mattering being different than achievement. So what makes you feel like you matter? Or who is somebody who's made you feel like you matter? I think we probably have time for 1 or 2 responses. So is anybody interested in going? Yeah, let's kick you off, Daniel.
I think the first, I'd say 2 people that come to mind are actually my grandparents, the ones who, came here from Korea. And they are very old. They're in their late 80s. they've experienced a lot in life. I try to catch up with them every so often, and now that I'm no longer on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast, and they live in Virginia, I'm able to visit them a little bit more often than I used to be able to. And because they've seen so much in life and they've been long retired, they just love to hear what my updates are. They're not. I love my parents, but even my parents can sometimes get on my nerves because they're now asking, oh, so are you going to take the GRE, and are you what schools are you looking for master's programs? I'm like, I just got a job here. I'm still trying to figure myself out here at my firm. I feel like I'm trying to survive at this firm. But my grandparents are, they just generally ask me how I'm doing and what I'm up to, and sometimes those simple questions with nothing else around it is such a refreshing, reminder that I am enough and that I'm doing enough. And then I also reciprocate that too, and I know that they have a very simple life. My grandfather, if he is allowed to, he'll go out and play golf at the country club that they're at, and my grandmother will just sit at her computer and playing solitaire or something. So they have a very simple life. But speaking with my grandparents can be a very sobering, a very good reset. Where a lot of people around me are asking me the J word, how's your job? The C word, what's your career going to look like? So yeah, I would say my grandparents.
That's wonderful. What a gift to have them. Yeah. Hope, do you want to give it a shot? Yeah.
Honestly, coming here has been great. I do get asked a lot about college applications and stuff like that, even here, but that is people's favorite question everywhere. But coming here, most people don't know me as a student. They just know me as a person. I walk in and these people don't know what GPA I have or what my report card looks like or what classes I'm in. They know I do homework all the time, and they know I'm probably taking way too many classes and that I probably don't sleep enough, but they don't know, and not they don't care, but that's not what's important to them, in the sense of who I am as a person. And Grace even has recently reiterated to me multiple times that I'm so much more than the grade that I have in a class or the college that I go to. So I think the important thing is having spaces like that where it's not necessarily fully free from comparison, because obviously sometimes in high school youth you're talking to the other seniors and you're like, oh, where are we going to college? But that's not the point of it, if that makes sense. It's at school, that's almost the point of who's going to be the best, who's going to go to the best school, who's going to be the valedictorian, who has the best grade, who got the best test grade. But when you have people, and I have some teachers like this too, where it's we matter first to them as people. Yes, they want us to be successful as students, but they want us first to be successful and have our own well-being as people first. So treating people as people first and making sure that that's not the first thing that you're thinking about is what have you achieved. It's more about who you are.
Well, I'm certainly grateful for who each of you is. I love, Daniel, you beautifully explained what Hope was capturing, that you had a friend who was having a hard time getting a job, and you're like, you're still my best friend. You're still a good friend. You're still a good dude. That's who you are to me, not your job. And I'd like us all to commit to seeing these four and all the other young adults and youth in our church as people first. But then I'd also ask us to hold the mirror up to ourselves and ask when we see ourselves as our job, as our home, as what we've done for somebody else, what we've achieved, and how we see that in other people. Because achievement culture is highly reflective in youth and young adults, but it really exists outside of that. Will you join me in thanking these amazing people for... And I'm going to ask you to refrain from what I'm going to, the question about where are you going to college, what sports are you playing, what are you doing, but maybe asking them what they like to do, and maybe ask Hope about her best baking recipes, because she's also an excellent baker, but that doesn't go on a college application. Let's find out a little bit more about who these people are. I just want to make one note about how we'll continue our time. I always say I know that there's a barrier that's going to get in our way of expectation that you would read the book. You don't need to read the book to talk about the water that we swim in. We live in Charlotte. We know this exists. Please participate in this study, not simply for your own education, but also so that we can change the way that we minister to our youth and young adults, and so that we can change the way that our communities and our homes look. So we'll have small groups that are doing a book discussion of the book. You don't, again, I'll say it one more time, you don't need to have read the book to participate in the discussion. If you would like to read the book, we have books for sale out this direction and out that direction. And I'd love to help you get plugged into a small group. So I'm going to close us in a word of prayer and then send us out into our nights, and hopefully time to chat with one another. Let's pray. Good and gracious God, we thank you for who you are and who you have created us to be. Good and kind, passionate and loving, so much more than what we do for the world, so much more than what we achieve. Remind us of who we are and whose we are. Send us into the world with that good news. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Thanks, y'all.